Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and a newly identified risk. And I'd like to welcome back for what, fourth, fifth time now already, is founder and CISO of Cyber Risk Opportunities, Kip Boyle. Kip, welcome back.
Oh, thanks, Alex. I really enjoy the opportunity to talk with you. So thanks for having me here.
Oh, the last few chats have been great and really interesting and insightful. So I'm glad to have you share some more insights with us today. Now,
Awesome. All right. So where do we begin?
first, let's start off with artificial intelligence and a relatively newly identified risk. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I want to apologize up front because everybody's talking about artificial intelligence so much, right? AI this, AI that, and I know it can be fatiguing for people to listen to this, but unfortunately, we do need to talk about this as risk managers. So, and the issue here is data leakage. Now, there's so many ways that our sensitive data can be leaked due to the use of artificial intelligence. And it can really happen anywhere from somebody using a chat interface with one of these large language models, all the way over to agentic artificial intelligence, right? So there's this thing called OpenClaw. Alex, I don't know if you've heard of that yet, but it's kind of this free, agentic, open source product that people can download and give it power and give it access and almost give it like an identity as if it was your chief of staff or somebody, a butler, and it can accidentally cause data leakage. Of course, you can type anything you want into Chat GPT and hit return, and then you might go, oh, I really wish I hadn't done that. Well, it also is happening on a larger scale. So we've got companies like Samsung, um, where engineers had pasted highly proprietary semiconductor source code into ChatGPT. There were three separate incidents over a period of 20 days. And, you know, we don't know what happens to this data when it goes into the LLMs, but I think it's fair to say that it's out of our control. And so, this is a big issue. And then one more thing that I want to talk about is with data leakage in AI is there's a new protocol called MCP, Model Context Protocol. And what I think is going to happen is people are going to be connecting their generative AI tools to this model context protocol, and it's going to open up gateways to share information with outsiders in ways that we've never seen before. And guess what? No firewall can stop this.
So, as an example, if I'm working for a financial institution, shall we just say, I'll just pick that at
Hmm.
random. I have some complex spreadsheets or policies as an example, and I want to get them all aligned. As an employee, me posting that information in AI, ChatGPT, or whatever tool,
Hmm.
it could eventually go anywhere. That's the kind of thing we're talking about, right? Like other
That's
people
correct.
around the world could do a search and all of a sudden it'll pull from what I put in there.
Yeah, it's just a big question mark and a black box. And as a risk manager, I got to be honest, I find staring at a black box to be a bit more unnerving than dealing with a risk that I fully understand because I just don't know where this thing's going to go to. Um, and so it's really like the big unknown, right? It's a big question mark. Is something bad going to happen? Is nothing bad going to happen? We just have no idea what the consequences of this could be. It's just so early right now that I'm just urging caution um, when it comes to using sensitive information with large language models. There's I don't know if you've heard about it, Alex, but Anthropic, which is the company that makes the Claude AI models like Opus, Sonnet, Haiku. Well, they've recently released plugins for Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint and Word. And what you end up with is these very powerful large language models actually in your spreadsheet. And you can tell them to do things and it will manipulate the cell data. It'll construct formulas for you, do formatting. I mean, it's amazing. It is really, truly amazing. But you have to ask the question, where does that data go? It's obviously being sent into the cloud for processing and coming back again. So what's in that spreadsheet?
So here's my question that I just, because I have a whole bunch all of a sudden. And one I've got is many organizations we are using to some degree Office 365 by Microsoft. And from what I've seen so far, I won't, this won't be everybody, but many
Right.
have Copilot that comes with it,
Hmm.
or Office, or whatever AI
Right.
tool that comes with it. So how do we put guardrails on then when we are actually giving this tool to our employees to use, but we don't have the actual guardrails in place to say, but not under these circumstances
Right.
and only use this. So
This
how do you do
is,
that when we are
yeah.
giving them already access to it?
So to show everybody how old I am, I'll say that's the $64,000 question, right? The issue is that this is all very nascent, right? So we don't have vendor commercial grade tools that we can call upon to put into these workflows to guard against these, data, the sensitive data being disclosed, these data leakages. So we have to really rely on a few things. First of all, good governance, and that means an acceptable use policy along with training. Now, if we had great controls, technical controls, then maybe we could lean on those a little bit more and a little bit less on training because that's sometimes we do that, right? But this is not one of those times. The thing is that AI use from a network security perspective, when you think about firewalls, you think about data leak prevention technologies, all this looks like legitimate, normal business use. So we really don't have a lot of technology to deal with. So we really have to come back to culture. What are we telling people is okay? Are we making it easy for them to understand? And actually, Alex, what I've noticed working with our customers is there's another side to this coin, this acceptable use coin. On the one side, like we want to say, here's what you ought not to do and what we don't want you to do. But it also turns out that a lot of people are not using AI or are minimizing their use because they don't know what's okay. They're afraid that they're going to make a mistake and get in trouble because they haven't been given clear guidance. So, if an organization is investing a ton of money into adopting AI, but they haven't clarified acceptable use, that's actually hurting them in a way that maybe they don't understand because people are kind of frozen in fear. So, good governance is going to cover you in both of these dimensions.
Where does that governance come from, though, and the rules around it? Because let's face it, it doesn't matter what your position is, whether you're the president, CEO, director, IT, VP, data analyst. No one has experience, well, hardly anyone has experience with that to start with. So, how do you
Right.
go about even determining good usage of AI?
Yeah. Well, so it's a blend of two things, is what I'm seeing. My history working in cybersecurity before AI came along, I always knew, or at least after I found out the first times the hard way, that anytime you want to change the way people work at a desk level, you're talking about an organizational change management problem space. And the best people to help you would be the direct supervisors. So you got to take that understanding and then marry that with some expert that you can turn to and say, okay, you're using AI all the time. You're ahead of us on how this technology works. Explain it to us, right? So that we can figure out how to take, um, what apply it to our environment, make that acceptable use policy, and then use the frontline supervisors to actually roll it out. That's what we're doing with customers of ours today.
So there you go, everyone. Everyone send an email to Kip about that.
Or just do it because I've really given you the secret formula.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help, but that's how you do it.
So what happens then if, because we're talking data leakage, what happens when it gets out there? Because when we have a cyber attack like ransomware, hopefully organizations have a SERP, cyber incident response plan or whatever they call it in
Right.
place in consultation with their ITDR and the business continuity, et cetera, to
Hmm.
respond to that. But what happens if there is accidental use, like the Samsung example that you gave earlier on, that gets out
Right.
there? Well, how do we deal with that now?
Well, it's got to be follow our plan. You have to, I think, categorize it as a data breach, just like you would for any purpose. You mentioned ransomware. That's a great, well understood cause of data breach these days. But there can be other causes. In the past, we had data breaches of credit card information because we had info stealers, getting into people's networks, right? And it was all automated. So I think the fact that it's an AI driven data breach doesn't really change the fact that you're just still looking at a data breach, and therefore you just need to treat it as a data breach as you would, no matter what the cause. But of course, in the investigation and in the root cause analysis, in the after action, clearly you're going to have to, deal directly with the fact that it was AI caused, and then ask yourself, given that this is an emergent technology, my gosh, Alex, this stuff is seeping up through the floorboards, right? Even if I don't want Copilot in my M365 stack, I don't. There's no off button, right? I mean, it's just there. So we're going to have to figure this out, and it's just everything's just so new. It's just it's tough.
So, using ransomware as an example, we have to bring all of our various response teams and planning teams, operational resilience people, et cetera, together to deal with that. But we also need to consider that same approach when it's an internally triggered event, like a data leakage event, like the Samsung or other event
Right.
too, right? It
Great.
can't
Yeah.
just, we got to bring them on
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, that's right. And even even the old standby of somebody sent an email, they attached the wrong spreadsheet, and they caused a data breach because they sent information that they didn't mean to. It was an error. Well, I mean, that's still in the same ballpark in my way of thinking.
Are there any tools out there that can be leveraged right off the bat to help? Restrict
Well,
certain things. If I tried to copy a spreadsheet or attach a spreadsheet as an example into whatever AI tool I have, and AI can turn around and just say, not allowed to do that. Are there things like that in place?
I'm not aware of anything that's available in the commercial market that can do that for you. I have no doubt that that is being worked on and that we'll see products like that being offered at some point. Perhaps there are some out there that are available in a beta test or something. I'm on my way to the RSA show in a couple of weeks from the time that we're recording this, and I fully expect to see brand new organizations, brand new vendors, venture backed that are going to focus on data loss prevention in an AI context. Now, one thing that you can do, this isn't really a technical control, but one thing that you can do is you can think about licensing. So when you use generative AI, you can do it under different licensing schemes. And for example, uh, we use Claude and a lot for what we do here at Cyber Risk Opportunities. And so I did the work of finding out what is their data retention policies if I just use a personal account in the chat interface. What are those same policies if I use the chat account but under a corporate account, a team account? And what are those policies if I access the model via the application programming interface? So those are three completely different ways to access the same essential service. And wouldn't you know it, they have completely different terms of use. And if you use the consumer grade interface, you're looking at up to 90 days of data retention plus model training. So it's very, very permissive for them. On the other hand, if you go through the API, it's only 7 days of retention and only for safety purposes and never for training their models. And then the team one is sort of in the middle. So, you can think about, getting um, a contract in place that will limit what happens to data if you do accidentally disclose it.
That's interesting. So anyone who does anything, remember it came from Kip and Alex first, that whole idea. So
And you ought to consult with your general counsel too. If you're going to go that direction, talk to your lawyer, whoever advises you, because they're going to help you choose the right situation for your setup.
yeah, because we already have, or should anyway, have data retention policies for files. Banks have to keep
Right.
them for several years, and a couple of years after that as well, because of audit purposes and other
Exactly.
initiatives that are out
Yeah.
there. So, you know, um, there was something else I wanted to ask you. It was in the notes that we shared back and forth, and it was a
Hmm.
comment you had here, and I was just wondering if you could explain it. This is shadow IT on steroids. Had
Right.
a
Yeah.
had it underlined like, oh, what does that mean?
Well, I think everybody has probably heard that turn of phrase, shadow IT, and really that was something that came with cloud computing because a lot of cloud computing can be accessed under a freemium model, which is to say, if I open up an account for personal use and I don't exceed certain usage thresholds, it's free or extremely cheap. And I can do company business using these personal accounts, and the IT department has no idea this is going on. And so that's shadow IT, right? Well, now we have Shadow AI, and it's really conceptually very similar. I can take company business that I need to do, tasks that are assigned to me, and I can go off to ChatGPT or I can go to Gemini or Grok or whatever, and I could put my company assignments into these platforms because I don't have to pay anything or not much, $20 a month, and I can get these things to help me get my work done. And there's really nothing that you can do to stop me from doing that, technically speaking. And some people say, oh, well, we block all that at the firewall. And okay, great. But guess what? I can use this to take a photo of my screen. The AI will read the text in the photo and process my query. So this shadow AI thing is real. There's not a lot we can do to technically squash it. And so that's why I wanted to mention it.
Yeah, it's easy to say we can block someone from accessing a folder on SharePoint or wherever, somewhere in a folder.
Right.
But it's not as easy with AI to be able to do that because you've given me the tool to use. Well, I'm going to find a way that I can use it. Or at least
Absolutely.
there's going to be some people out there who are going to
Hmm.
find every way possible, to
Yeah.
use
Let me
it.
just wrap up with this one thought.
Sure.
So I hear a lot of senior decision makers say, well, they either sort of fall to one side and say, yeah, everyone's going to use AI, whatever, or they fall to the other side and they say, well, we're going to block everything. And what I tell people is like, well, that's a false choice. You really don't like that. That's good governance suggests neither one of those is the right way to go. The real choice is, am I going to govern or am I not going to govern? Because people are going to do what they do. You're either going to put guardrails in place or you're not. So that's the way to think about it.
Right. On that note, we've come to the end of the show. Kip, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this.
I'm really happy to have had the chance.